From the very first moment Liam Vanstone was born, something seemed off. The nurses whispered in hushed tones, the doctors frowned with concerned expressions, and his parents, particularly his father, Maxwell Vanstone, the wealthy and powerful owner of a vast corporate empire, were thrust into a world of uncertainty. Specialists ran tests over and over again, confirming what no parent wants to hear. Liam was deaf. According to the charts, the reports, and the clinical equipment, there was no hope. Maxwell, a man who thrived on control and certainty, accepted the diagnosis. He arranged for the best therapists, the most advanced devices, and the most expensive private lessons. But he also retreated emotionally. Liam was precious, but he was also fragile in a way that money could not fix. The staff tiptoed around him as if he were delicate porcelain, afraid of startling him with sounds he supposedly could not hear. The mansion, vast and cold, echoed with silence, punctuated only by the occasional whisper of a maid or the distant hum of a servant going about his duties. But in the midst of this silent, orderly world, there was one person who refused to accept the conclusions drawn by charts and machines. Elsa, the housekeeper, had been with the family for nearly a decade. She had seen children, she had seen life, and she had learned to trust her instincts. There was something in Liam, something beyond the tests, that suggested the diagnosis was wrong. She began noticing small things no one else did. Liam would flinch when keys jingled in the hall, his head turning slightly as if to follow an invisible sound. He would tilt his body toward the boiling kettle in the kitchen, eyes wide with curiosity. When music floated from the grand piano in the drawing room, Liam would tap his fingers rhythmically, almost as though he were keeping time. These moments were brief, subtle, easily overlooked, but Elsa saw them. And in her mind, they meant something profound. Liam could hear. He was listening. Determined, Elsa devised a way to reach him. She hummed quietly as she worked, sweeping the floors, polishing silver, and dusting the tall bookshelves that lined the mansion walls. The hums were soft, low vibrations meant not for ears but for feeling. She tapped gently on tables and counters, allowing Liam to sense the rhythm through his fingertips. At night, she traced letters slowly on his tiny hands, spelling out words and names, repeating the movements again and again until her touch became familiar and comforting. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and slowly, Liam began to respond not with words, but with reactions. He would smile when she hummed the correct melody. He would tilt his head toward the correct rhythm. He would mimic the tapping, almost as if to say, "I understand." Maxwell, preoccupied with board meetings, mergers, and the constant demands of a life built on wealth and power, never noticed these small victories. To him, Liam was still silent, still unreachable, but Elsa did not waver. She spent hours with him, speaking in vibrations, teaching patience, and silently urging him to trust that the world could listen back. Then came the night that changed everything. A storm rolled in, heavy rain lashing against the mansion windows, wind rattling the doors, and thunder booming across the estate. The house was dark, lit only by the occasional flash of lightning that illuminated its grand halls and ornate furniture. Elsa knelt beside Liam in the drawing room, tracing letters carefully on his small hand while humming the tune he had begun to recognize. The storm raged outside, and for a moment, nothing happened. Liam's face was calm but tense, his tiny fingers curled into Elsa's as he focused intently on the vibrations she produced. And then, in a moment of pure, unexpected magic, he giggled. A real, audible laugh. His face lit up with joy, eyes sparkling as he let out a small, clear shout. "Stop." Elsa froze, tears welling in her eyes. The word echoed through the grand room, bouncing off the walls like a chorus that had been waiting 9 years to be heard. Maxwell, drawn by the commotion, arrived just in time to witness the moment. His eyes widened, disbelief and awe competing across his face. No test, no doctor, no expensive machine had ever unlocked Liam's voice. Only patience, only care, only someone who had refused to see a child as broken had accomplished this miracle. The next days and weeks were revelation. Liam's confidence grew, each day bringing new words, new laughter, and new stories. The mansion, once silent and cold, now rang with the sound of his voice, his joy, and his curiosity. Staff members who had tiptoed for years around a deaf child now marveled at his words, at the life that had been there all along, quietly waiting to emerge. Elsa, humble and unnoticed by many, became the hero of the house, though she never sought recognition. To her, the real reward was in watching Liam grow, in seeing his eyes light up with understanding, and in hearing his laughter fill the empty corners of the mansion. Maxwell, for his part, was changed. He realized that wealth and influence, for all their power, could not replace empathy, patience, or the simple act of noticing the small, quiet truths of life. His son had been waiting for someone to believe in him, to see him as capable rather than broken, and that belief had unlocked a voice stronger than any machine or test could produce. Years later, when Liam confidently read aloud in his school recital, telling stories he had imagined for years, Maxwell sat in the front row, tears streaming down his face. He understood finally that the greatest gifts were not bought, they were nurtured. And he would never forget the quiet, unassuming woman who had given his son a voice. Elsa, the housekeeper who saw the child the world refused to believe in. For in the end, the world had underestimated Liam, but Elsa never had. And because of her, the boy who had been called deaf, silent, unreachable, had become a child whose laughter, curiosity, and words filled not only the mansion but every heart within it.